Hello, everyone. Pleasure to meet everyone from here. My name is Amina Mehti. I am the founder and creative director of a digital fashion house called Crown Studio. To those that maybe are not familiar, we essentially digital fashion is pretty straightforward. But with Crown, what we do is we take digital fashion and merge it with the world of gaming. So I am excited to talk maybe outside of just my own brand and talk about the future of fashion and where I see it going in terms of the current social trends I've seen in media as well as socials and how the space is going to progress. Um, yeah, so I'm open to any questions once we get into it. So, future of fashion, how will our identity transform, right? So, before I get into it, everybody either loves or hates fashion. There's many different perspectives, but most of us have a very lenient way to look at it because that's one of the easiest way for us to express ourselves. When we enter a room, we make a certain impression, and almost 80% of that is based on how we're dressed or how we act or how that clothing complements our aura, right? So it encompasses a big part of our identity. So before I get into it, that is what I think fashion is. It's a form of expression, it is a form of identity that you can communicate non-verbally, right? So starting off from that perspective, how is fashion a self-expression, right? So a lot of the times when we wear a certain kind of clothing, either dramatic, there's different kinds of styles. If you go to fashion school, they'll break it all down. But the more dramatic appearances, signal different psychological stages of a person, either their or as well as their different sides of their personality. So there's different ways to look at it, and what we're going to discuss more is a sociological perspective, how that group of people, how that psychology develops once you express yourself in a certain way. So now, considering all of that within the traditional fashion form, what does it mean to have it all in the virtual, right? A lot of the times when I tell people I do digital fashion, they're like, okay, wait, but where am I going to wear this virtual clothing? It doesn't even exist. And true, it's very limited considering what we have available for us now. The digital is, as much as it opens up barriers, it at the same time is very limiting in terms of how we can wear it. But the emergence of it was quite rapid and quite insistent. So why exactly is virtual fashion something that we need to be discussing and something that we see a potential in? Number one in that is because of sustainability perspectives. There are many, many negatives that we face in the current fashion industry that is very harmful to the environment and doesn't align with any of the sustainability perspectives that the Gen Z and eventually Gen Alpha community and individuals strongly believe in. So now, taking the sustainability aspect of it is one thing, but if we focus on the self-expression part, the ability to have a digital clothing in and of itself frees you from way more confinements that you would expect. Now, that can be said from the perspective of the wearer as well as the designer. You're able to design absolutely anything. At Crown, we have clothings that are from crystallized dragon tears, soaps, magic aura crystals, and the list is truly endless. So as a designer, in my perspective, I just have more fun with it, right? So that's something that brought the emergence of it and why a lot of current fashion houses are looking into it and also exploring their brand identity in the virtual. Now, going back to the psychological perspectives that I mentioned and the sociological aspects, social media, if you focus on how it has developed our youth, has been very, very dramatic. So that goes to say with, of course, body image and many other negative sides. But in terms of what we wear, people have found style icons that they follow throughout the world. It doesn't limit you in any way. Now, at the same time, it's kind of created a group think, right? So when we see one person wear something, it immediately goes on trend. Well, how about we do that in virtual? What would that mean? Easier access, less transportation costs, easier supply chain management, because all of it's being done by a certain group of people on a computer that is easily spreadable. So that by itself has a big impact, bigger than you would expect. Now, social and media trends, not exactly social media. What we've seen statistically with Gen Z, and this is especially amplified during the COVID time, is that Gen Z members have followed this almost, what in psychology people would say escapism, right? So what that would mean is they would like to stay in their own little rooms, in their own little corners, and explore what they feel like is a part of their little world. Now, you could see this in different media aspects. For example, the heightened spread of anime, right? Or animated movies. That's something that doesn't coexist with the real world, something that we can't really see because it's very cartoony, very animated, but people recognize themselves in certain characters. They like to be that part of that world, and that's how gaming as well plays into it, because as a gamer, you immerse yourself into an experience that doesn't exist. It is a fantasy, it's a virtual reality. And that is something that we've seen slowly in different aspects of media. That's with film, of course, that's with anime, with movies like Avatar, with the increased technology that it creates a complete fantasy reality. That's something that we're seeing in different aspects and plays into that whole formation of a digital reality. Now, going back to gaming, how does gaming and fashion coexist, right? So fashion, as people before me have mentioned also in their panels and talks, skins and fashion in gaming has a completely different utility. Now, we talked about it being a form of self-expression, which is true for many, but if we're looking at a gamer community, which is massive in a $1 trillion industry, gamers look at fashion in a way that can benefit them. Yes, it describes my avatar. Yes, it gives me the ability to express who my character is. But at the same time, I can do this with it. It gives me a certain level of XP. It gives me healing powers, so on and so forth. And when you look at the spending number of, how much money people spend on skins, I think recently there was a statistic that came out that one person spent $160,000 on a skin for a gun. So, virtual gun, of course. And, that just goes to show that people become so immersed in that little reality that they can't distinguish between what's real and what's not. So that gives fashion a whole new ability to explore. How can we make fashion more functional, more than just wearing it and expressing ourselves and communicating with others about our personality and our psychological state or so on? How can we use fashion to benefit us in a new reality where we believe it to be real? So going back to that, who are we targeting with this kind of fashion? Of course, Gen Z, of course, people that are sustainability focused, people that, again, are gamers, but gamers with the idea of what can I do with it? What can I use this fashion for, right? And when you go back to NFTs, NFTs by themselves bring that whole community together. You can bring those members, those Gen Z players and gamers into that reality and have them constantly interact with your brand because they do that on a daily basis in their virtual games, in their virtual reality. You become a person that they want to constantly be in touch with because it benefits their virtual identity. So now looking into what's the future. What will digital fashion look like? So looking forward and considering what we've experienced now, I definitely see it becoming a way for people to just immerse themselves. As tech progresses, because we face a lot of limitations with specs and file limitations, and as well as gaming platforms really need some development in terms of their graphics. Once we overcome that, we're going to see people just completely immerse themselves days on end in this virtual reality. And fashion will play as much of a big role in virtual as it does today in the physical, if not more. So going to that, that's exactly what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a healthy perspective, a healthy formation of identity that doesn't disturb the mind of people, of course, as they submerge themselves into the digital. So that's a short overview of what I see to be the future of fashion, and open to any questions if there are any. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.